was having a conversation, and this one particular person, I won't say names, but they mean a lot to me in my life. They're like, well, she should know what I need because I've told her. And I was like, how many times? Well, I told her.
Once, kind of like that old joke of, honey, why don't you ever say you love me anymore? And the man's like, I told you I love you once, and if I change my mind, I'll let you know.
I'll let you know exactly. And that's where, he was at with it. I said, listen, I understand where you're coming from, that you have this relationship, you've been married, you love her, she loves you, and it would make you feel good if she just knew how to take care of you and all of your needs. Except that's not how it works. She's constantly taking care of the needs of a child who's just screaming and crying at her, and she's already having to decipher what that child needs and meet that need. And then she's having to decipher her own needs. What the hell do I need? And then now she's got this, excuse me, grown ass man who's not communicating to her exclusive, like relentlessly, what it is that he needs. And I told him, I was like, that's a problem with you. That's a you problem. And it is so easy. He feels like he's already being rejected if he asks for it.
Yeah.
Because if I have to ask for it, then you're just going to do it out of guilt.
Let's go back to childhood and my abuser. So my dad used to make me feel so bad that I didn't know things that he was thinking. And he would get so upset at me. Well, how would you not do that? You need to know that. I'm like, I haven't heard anybody say anything. Well, you're just supposed to know. And I'm like, how would I know if you don't communicate? And then get hit for not knowing. Yeah. So that's a lot of the skittishness that I had early on. I'm better at it now, but I on of even like questioning, like communicate with me, because it's like that translated into you're stupid, right? You should know things. And then I was in other relationships where the same thing happened. There was these assumptions made that you should just know. Well, you're this role in my life, so because you're in that role, you should know that you're supposed to do this. How would I know? Like it's so unfair to each other to leave us in the dark, make those assumptions, and for the love of life, communicate. Like, how hard is this?
Right. Yeah, I think of that particular person I was talking with, and I've gone one step deeper with them and asked them these prying questions that I do all the time. And I know their childhood, and I know where it comes from. This, if I have to ask for it, then they'll just be guilted. His father never said I love you. Like, yeah. Ever. It wasn't a thing, didn't show affection. And he had to rationalize it in his head that I'm not going to ask for it. I can't ask for it because I'm not going to hear, I don't want the guilt. He had to rationalize that and create that pattern in his head to excuse the reason why his father never said I love you to him. And so now he says I love you all the time, like to everybody. If he loves them, he loves them, and he's going to tell them, he's going to communicate. And so I use that same example, and I said, all right, when you feel like you have to communicate to this person, hey, I need XYZ, and it already makes you feel rejected just by having to ask, do you like hearing I love you? Do you enjoy that? Well, she told you yesterday. Why you need to hear it today?
Yeah.
Well, she told you 10 weeks ago. Why you need to hear it today? Do you need to hear it tomorrow? How about 10 weeks from now? Do you need to hear it still? And I said, it's the same thing. You're constantly communicating, I love you. So you need to constantly communicate, hey, let's hang out. I'd like to sit down on the couch and watch a movie. It's so important, guys.
And let's just put it out there. The communication is not about the words. It's about the intent behind the words, the tone behind the words, the meaning behind the words. Like, and I tell you this a lot, I'm proud of you. You're doing a great job with the podcast. The book is amazing. Like, I say those words to you often, and I almost feel apologetic now. I always kind of go, I know I say it a lot, but I'm really proud of you. And I do that because I already know you don't take compliments very well, but I say it again and again because I care. And that communication is in my mind, if I repeat it often enough, then maybe someday that little brain of hers will finally get it in her head of, hey, I should be proud of me. If Jimmy keeps being proud of me, Wildman's proud of me, everybody around me is proud of me. Oh, oh, maybe I should be proud of me. So it does manifest in that way of it's more than just the words of communicating. Like it's
Yeah.
not told, I'm proud of you. Okay, are we done yet? No, it's not that. It's truly, hey, I see you there. You mean something to me. I'm proud of you.
Yeah, yeah, and that's exactly another way when you're communicating, don't just communicate your needs, but like communicate things that you see, things that matter to you, you know, and I'm not great at compliments. Again, this is something that
She
it's
gets so
childhood.
awkward.
I'm working on it.
She gets so awkward, you guys. I'll offer a compliment about something. She's like, I'm like, are you throwing up? What are you doing? What is that noise?
And it's not just that I'm not so great at receiving, I'm not so great at giving either. It is way out of my comfort zone to give compliments. And so like words of affirmation, that love language, the 5 love languages is important too. I think we should get into that one just a second.
Which your
Um,
husband has words of affirmation as one of his love languages.
right,
So how do you?
right. And
So does Jimmy, by the way. So how do you fight that?
you're a lot more words of affirmation than Wildman is.
Yeah.
Wildman is pretty much physical touch, but
Did you go keto and thought you had to give up wine? Well, let me introduce you to Dry Farm Wines. It is the world's first sugar-free alcohol that is lower than your typical wines, organic, made at local farms that do it the right way. Most of the wines that you buy are from 3 really big companies, loaded with additives and preservatives, so many dozens of those kinds of things. You don't want all that junk in your wine. So go to dryfarmwines.com/Jimmy and they will ship you these wines. And just because you listen to this podcast, Dry Farm Wines is going to give you a bottle in your first order for just 1 cent. Go to dryfarmwines.com/Jimmy and you will get your bottle of wine for just 1 singular penny. Go check them out. Dry Farm Wines, you guys. It's wine o'clock somewhere. Let's go get some wine.
oh, let's just do it. So when it comes to communication within a love relationship, and even like any relationship, a friendship or parent-child relationship, there's this book called The 5 Love Languages by Gary Chapman,
Yep.
and he goes into detail of which one is which, and this is really like effective communication. If you want to effectively communicate with someone, like learn their love language. Don't just communicate through your love language. So the 5
Yep.
of them are words of affirmation, physical touch, quality time, gifts, and acts of service. And
Sure.
so some of them can cross over. Some of
Yep.
them, you know, you might have a little bit of this, a little bit of that, but usually there's one main one. Mine's quality time. I don't have to physically be next to you. I can talk on the phone with you for 3 hours.
You would
Or
prefer
like,
not. You would prefer not being physically next to you.
yeah, I'm usually, yeah,
At my
yeah.
birthday
Oh,
party, I went to hug her, and she was just like, "Oh, I'm all hugged out, Jimmy's."
I did. My sister and I just spent like 6 hours in one day on the phone because, you know, that's my love language, and I'm appreciative of that. And so Wildman knows when he wants to communicate with me and meet with me and fill my love cup, it's spending time with me. So when he's working all these hours, I'm just like, my cup is so empty right now.
Yes. Why, when you've got a week time and you're currently in the middle of that week time or at the very beginning of it, it gets hard on you towards the end.
It does, because I don't feel like I've been communicated with, and you know, and it's not anything that he can help.
No.
He has to work,
Work it.
but you know, when communication breaks down and there's lack of communication in this area and other areas, you feel unloved. And what happens when you feel unloved? You react, and you're more reactive, and then you're angry, and then anger is actually what underneath. You know, sometimes it's resentment, bitterness. Sometimes it's just fear. Sometimes it's just, I don't feel loved, and I don't know how to communicate to you that I don't feel loved,
Yeah.
because that's harder to say. So you just be angry all the time.
Well, you hit on something really big in there when you said don't communicate to others in the way that you feel loved. Because if you do it in the way you feel loved, and that other person doesn't have those same feelings, the same qualities, the love language, they're not going to feel loved. And I've seen this in relationships that I've had and in other people, and it always comes down to, well, I'm giving them what I would want, and I'm like, there's the problem. This is why that open line of communication is so critical. Yes, take that little test from Gary Chapman, which, by the way, that's a Christian resource. When I used to work in Christian bookstores back in the 90s, we sold millions of those, but well, we didn't sell, but they sold millions back in the 90s when it first came out. But anyway, that's the crux of why there's so much difficulty in these communications, is when you do try to communicate, you only see it through your prism. And look, I have worked very hard to get into that crazy mind of Brittany Davis. And I learned something new about you as of this morning. I was like, oh, wow, I didn't know you had that tendency, because we were communicating there. And I was like, okay, now I've got another point of reference in my head. There's other points of references where, like, when you need to be alone, that I don't understand that personally, but because I now know that is your thing, and I'm starting to put myself in your shoes. That's the thing, guys. This whole, for the love of life, communicate. Put yourself in the shoes of that person, not your version of that person. And this communication thing will go to a whole new level. I think that's why Brittany and I bond so strong, is she tries to see things through my eyes, and I try to see things through her eyes. It's a scary place on both directions because we're very unique people, but it works.
Yeah, the thing I wanted to get back into when we were talking about the 5 love languages is you're very much words of affirmation. And that's perhaps the one that I struggle with the most. Because it is not even on my radar. Like, it is not even listed. Like, there's only 5 of them, and it's not even in the top 5.
It's fascinating that we're best friends, that I love words of affirmation. You don't give them. So
No, exactly. Yes, exactly. Go ahead.
You don't give them enough. You do make an effort, and it's always so painful. Thank you, Jim. Me, and I'm like, wow, does it hurt that much? I guess it does.
Yes, exactly. And so, but as your friend, and as you know, we've progressed, I have realized, okay, and it's not just Jimmy. I have other people in my life who enjoy words of affirmation. If I'm going to build a quality relationship with them, I have to communicate on their level. And so, even if it's difficult for me, if I desire that relationship and I want to build that relationship, personally develop that relationship, if you will, I have to get better at communicating in the way that they feel.
What's funny about yours being quality time is when you want to be alone. So at that point, the communication is the alone is the quality time with Brittany here.
Oh.
And so I had to reframe that in my head. I'm like, well, she likes quality time. I give her quality time. We talk for hours on end during the week. But when you go quiet on me, in my mind, I go, well, she's not letting me stroke that love language, but she is, because she's having that quality time here when you're alone. And so I've learned to, it's still tough, but I've learned to be a little better about how to dance that.
Yeah, you were talking about this morning that
I did clearly that I'm available when you need me. So if you truly do, you reach out. In fact, yesterday you were like, you got any interviews going on? Or and I'm like, okay, that's code for I can talk. So
it was you know by now I wasn't just gonna come, because here's the thing, I know Jimmy because I know myself, and we would do the same thing. If I straight up said, Jimmy, let's talk, he would call me no matter what he had on his plan. And I didn't want him to cancel any of his plans because it wasn't emergent. I just wanted to talk. So
yes.
That's why I asked him to matter. Our code words. Yeah. Oh man. Seriously though, communication is it's vital.